So maybe you bought yourself a 6.0 diesel, or maybe you bought 3, or maybe you bought 4, but you're getting into this diesel world, and maybe you hadn't had one, but you know, for whatever reason, you working, you know, doing some kind of heavy duty work, and you needed one of these trucks. You made a good buy. There's a lot of, you know, misconceptions about these trucks, but if you know a little bit about them and you can do a little bit of work yourself and you maintain them, this is the best generation of Ford truck that for what I do. You're talking about something that'll go a real high mileage, you know, relatively low maintenance as long as you stay on top of it, and they're just super tough, super powerful. This generation of truck was built to work. Everything about these trucks was built to work. Everything on the underside. Today I'm going to show y'all a few things about the front end, and just hang with me. I tell people all the time, anymore, if you go buy a new F250, $70,000. I don't have $70,000, and if you go finance it, you're going to end up giving $110 for it, or maybe a little bit more if you finance it over time. But this is what I tell people: if you buy a vehicle and you put a crate motor in it, let's say you just go all out, put a crate motor in it, a transmission, and you go through your front end, your steering components and your wheel bearings and stuff, you've basically got a new vehicle. Now, I don't know about, you know, some people really need something to be pretty and nice and all that. I don't care about that. I need something that's going to get me down the road. I don't need a pile of junk, but I need something that's going to get me down the road, reliable up and down the interstate, tow my trailers, tow my loads and everything like that. But so let's say you buy, you know, one that's got a blown up motor. You give $3 or $4 grand for it. I give a little over, I think $2,300 is what I give for this dually. It wasn't running at the time, and I bought it off a guy that it only had 180,000 miles, I think. And I went through it and redone a bunch of stuff. It's got a new transmission in it. I got less than $6 grand in it, and it's a 180,000 mile truck, and it's been bulletproofed. This one here I bought off some kids. The reason I bought it is because it had a new transmission in it. And I took that transmission and put it in the white one because I got the whole truck for cheaper than what you could buy a used transmission for. And it had a brand new reman transmission that was updated. So that was a good buy. Well, I got the truck here and I got to liking it. And I wanted to get it back on the road. So I found another one that's got a lot of rust issues, but that had been really taken good care of. It only had 190,000 miles and the motor was virgin. All the clamps were still on the wiring harness. Good. You could tell it's been taken care of. It's got brand new wheel bearings, worn hubs, worn lockouts. I mean, real good. So I just butchered it, and it had a new reman transmission in it too, manual transmission. So I really got lucky with that. And I'm putting this one together. But what I was saying a minute ago, these trucks were built to work. You get up under them, and all your tie rod ends, center link bars, that's a grease fitting. So you can keep this greased. So give it a long, long life. Every one of these have got them. They're just all up under the truck, everywhere, all the way back to there. You got grease fittings. Keep those greased. That'll give you a long life out of this truck. Those interstate miles, hitting all those potholes and everything like that. Just keep that greased. All right, so if you buy one of these trucks, you want to look at fixing it up, like I said a minute ago, you can buy one of these trucks and go through some of these components, and you'll end up with a better truck at a lower price than what you'll get for one of these newer vehicles. And, you know, if you go to a car lot, you're going to get 12 grand for a pile of junk. If you bought this truck, the way it sits at a car lot, you'd get 12, 13 grand for it. But I want to show you how one of the first things you need to do is jack it up. And those grease fittings that I showed you a minute ago, all those center link bars and tie rod ends, the way you check those is you grab your wheel at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and you try to wiggle it. See, that's good and firm and good and tight. That goes back to all, they were built to last. Now, the way you want to check your wheel bearings, this is a different story on this truck. Is you grab 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock. You see all that wobbling? The wheel bearings are shot in this truck. A lot of it's got to do with the offset of those wheels that puts a lot of stress and a lot of strain on them. But that's just something that goes over. This truck had, the body had 281,000 miles on it, so it's time to change them. Unfortunate thing, that this has a good wheel bearing design. It's all sealed, but the bad thing about that is you just can't, it's not something you can take apart and repack like the old Toyotas, but it is what it is. The way it's sealed, it actually lasts longer than the older style bearings if you didn't take them apart and pack them. You know, the thing about those was you could get water and sand and grit up in there, and if you didn't take them apart and clean them and pack them, they would wear out quicker than these will. But anyway, I want to get to a couple more things. This had, obviously these are fuel wheels. I got this off a kid, like I said. But these have the old factory Toyota lockouts. You see that? I don't, or Ford lockouts. I don't know why I said Toyota. I'm not a fan of these plastic lockouts. If they work, they work. I just don't know a lot about them. But on my trucks, this one over here, one of the first things I did was put the Warren lockouts on it. That's my dually. Now, like I said, with this gray truck, one of the reasons I bought it was, like I said, it had the Virgin motor, new transmission. It's got M&M. That's in between Warren and the factory ones. This is the mid-grade ones. They're built just like the Warren ones. That's going to be a good lockout. I don't know much about that name brand, but it's good. It's metal. It's not plastic, and it bolts on just like the Warren ones do. So they're going to be just as good as the Warren lockouts, I think. So we're going to be taking that wheel bearing. That wheel bearing, this one's jacked up. This wheel bearing is like brand new. Somebody went through this truck not long before I got it and replaced all this stuff. So we're going to be taking this hub and wheel bearing and putting it on that black truck. This is the truck I took the motor and transmission out of. There's nothing in there. The motor and transmission are gone. It was a standard cab truck. It's an okay truck. Nothing wrong with it. It was super tight, like I said, but it's got a lot of rust, and it was standard cab. And I just wanted to get this one going. And it had that motor and transmission in it. But anyway, we're going to get into changing this hub and stuff today. Okay, so I got the wheel off, save a little time. Ain't no sense in showing y'all that, but I want to show you one more time how bad this thing is. It's just horrible. I mean, I don't know if you can even see it wiggle a little bit. That's crazy. With your wheel off, if you can wiggle it that much with your hands, that's bad, man. That's not safe, you know, because what will eventually happen is those wheel bearings will start eating. And I actually had a two-wheel drive Nissan that, of course, is a different design years ago, that the wheel bearings are bad and I didn't know it, and they ate through the spindle and the wheel fell off while I was going down the road when I was a kid. But anyway, once you get your wheel off, these old lockouts, what holds those in is that little snap ring right there. You go pull that little snap ring out, and I doubt you'll be able to do that with your fingers. That's an anomaly, but that's it. There's your hub, and these lockouts fit right down in there, and they just twist, and it looks like there's a piece missing off of this one. Let's see if there's I think there's a piece missing off this one. Sure enough. Yeah, it's part of it's missing. That's one reason why the four-wheel drive didn't work. But I'll show you when I take this other one off back here, how they go in there. What they do is when you twist it, it pushes in. I'll show you how it works. But it causes those grooves, it interlocks everything together. So these splines right here will end up being it'll cause these to spin, cause the wheel to spin with your four-wheel drive. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the brake caliper off. You got two bolts, one up high and one down low. And then you're going to take your rotor and stuff off, and there's going to be 4 bolts on the back, 2 on top, 2 on the bottom, and that's going to pull your hub out. Now these guys are, like I said, right there's your brake caliper bolt. There's one there and one on the bottom. And these other ones, I'll make another little piece, but it's inside here. See, there's one of them down there. They're inside of this piece, you know, your housing here. And they're a little more difficult to get into, but I'll show you in a minute. Couple things right quick. I should have said this earlier. Before you start taking anything off this vehicle or get up under it, you need to make sure it's secured. I've got the wheel scotched, I've got the transmission and gear, and it's the weight is not resting on that jack. It's just there as an added support. Those blocks, they're big, huge blocks I've got of wood. I don't recommend using cement block. I use them sometimes because I'm a block mason. I got a bunch laying around, but they will shatter and they'll break. They're dangerous. Use big wooden blocks like right there. Big thick ones, and it's resting before you get up under this thing. But I'm going to get into these bolts, and a lot of these bolts are going to be really torqued down, and you need to get on Google and check your torque specs if you got a torque wrench, or, you know, I mean, I've always just tight as you can get them, you know. Of course, you don't want to break anything, round anything off, or strip it. But this is where, all my life, I've never had an impact. You know, I never had a lot of money, but these impacts, I've learned. I had a little TikTok page, and I got a lot of stuff free off at TikTok shop because I make videos. It kind of blew up for a little while, but it's kind of dwindled down now. But anyway, what I'm getting at, this is one of the cheaper impacts. I got it off TikTok shop, and I really thought this stuff would be weak and janky, but this is a dang good. It saved me so much. All these wheels and stuff, you know, you're grunting with a cheater bar and everything, and no, man, it's unbelievable. I got several little power tools off of there, and I found found that the TikTok shop stuff's pretty good. I got one little cordless ratchet that it slips when it's trying to back a bolt out, but I mean, you know, it's cheaper stuff. But as a majority, a lot of the stuff I've got off TikTok shop really exceeds what I expected and does real good. And but anyway, I just want to say that. But I'm gonna break these loose. A lot of times you're going to need a cheater bar, breaker bar, and a cheater bar, and I've even got a hammer. Once I get them broke loose, I'll stick that impact on them. Most of the time that impact will take something off, but this top one's giving me a little bit of trouble. When I've done the other side, the impact took every bit of them off. But anyway, all about safety, guys. Just make sure your truck is jacked up and secured so you don't want anything falling on you. I had a friend that died, a Mustang fell on him. He was working on it by himself, and I work on my stuff by myself, so you got to be about safety, man. Do not let that thing sit up on a jack or anything that could wobble or move at all, you know. Okay, so I got my caliper off, and I thought that I'd give y'all a look at the brakes just in case you want to do a brake job or something. You know, I'm not doing a brake job because, as you can see, my pads are good shape, my rotors are good shape, but I wanted to show y'all the brakes are easy to change on these. You get your brake pads and you just slide these right out, and they slide right back in. And you know, you'll take a best way to do it is to take a C-clamp, you know, because if they're wore out, your brakes, they're going to be pushed together right there. That gap's going to be a lot closer together. When you put new ones in it, obviously you're not going to have a big enough gap to go over your rotor. So what I always do is take 2 C-clamps and put in here, or you can put your pad on it, but you pretty much need 2 C-clamps, because if you go pushing on this one, but you can put your pad in there and push those pistons back in, and it'll force that fluid back up through your, you know, your lines and everything, and get that separated so you can slide it right back on there. But these slide off really easy. Once you get those 2 bolts slid off, I'll lay it over there. It doesn't hurt to take a little bungee or something, strap it up so nothing falls on your head, you know. You can see those new U-joints in there. If you've been following me for any amount of time, I've got a lot of videos on these 6.0s, and I've got a lot more that I'm going to put up. I don't have many put up because I just started this YouTube thing. I was on TikTok for a long time. But I built this truck. What I done was, like I said earlier, I took the motor and transmission, and I've got all that documented. So I'm going to post all those videos. I went through the entire high-pressure oil system. I put this transmission in by myself. I mean, I've done all this by myself. I've had her come out one time. She actually had to help me. One time she had a good idea, and I used some ratchet straps when I went to put the transmission back in. She said, why don't you put a strap under this front side? And that was such a smart idea, and I did that. But most of the time I just do all this stuff myself, because I don't want to get her out here and, you know, in danger and, you know, get her hurt or anything like that. But you know, you can work on these trucks. I mean, you just, you know, necessity is the mother of invention, you know. But anyway, I'm gonna quit rambling and get on this. See that caliper rest right there on that leaf spring perfectly. Doesn't mess with your brake lines, your speed sensor, none of that stuff, wheel speed sensor. So next what's gonna happen is I'm gonna take this rotor off. It looks like it's a little bit tight, so I might have to give it a little bonk with a hammer. Usually they fall right off. But like I said, this truck came from a kid. So it's, you know, the whole thing has been crazy. It used to be an automatic. Somehow it ended up with a manual transmission in it. The motor that was bad in it that I took out, it had obviously probably an H-pop situation. They tried to pull it off to get the RPMs up to get it to start, and they just shredded one of the pistons inside them. I mean, they ruined it. But you know, that's what happens when you get one from a kid. You know, they don't really know what's going on. I mean, I know there's kids out there that are smarter than I am. I'm just saying these particular ones, you know. Okay, I got those 4 out, and one of the studs came out. Here's the 4 bolts that came nuts, but one of the studs came out, and that's going to happen sometimes. It just depends on what's loose, or, you know, what's more loose. But you got right here's where they come out. They go all the way through, and you can, if you get your truck jacked up to where you can articulate your wheels back and forth, you can use an impact on this. But I've found as long as you keep it straight, you can get them all forward without having to turn any wheels or anything if you're using a ratchet. And as long as it's not giving me a hard time, I just use a ratchet on these, because it's just, I want to see what's going on in there. You know, if one of them's getting cross-threaded or something. But once you get this loose, see, it's loose now. You got a snap ring and a nut right in here. Just pull your snap ring off and your nut, and I'll show you what happens next. Okay, so we got our snap ring out. Now, the next thing is going to be your wheels. You got this dust cover, and in the past, I'll be honest, I forgot those on, you know, not put them back on there, but you probably should put everything back on that you know, that you can. I mean, they put them on there for a reason. But you got the wheel speed sensor. This is where, you know, you get those ABS lights. What that is a wheel speed sensor. That sensor detects how fast that wheel's spinning, and it, you know, communicates on both of them. That way it knows if one of them locks up or not. It eases up on your brakes. That's what anti-lock brakes are, ABS, anti-lock brake system. But you got to take that wheel speed sensor off. If your new hub's got one on it, you can just unplug it. It goes right up under your fender well and plugs up over there. Or you can, you know, take it off and put it back in. Whatever you want to do. Just depends on if your new one's got one on there. If you decide to take it off, it's usually got a little hex head. Let me get in there and show you. It's got a little hex head right there. You have to clean it out. It's probably full of rust and stuff. But with these, like I said, they usually plug in right there. Right there is where it's at. With these, I'm just going to take it off. The other one's got new ones on it, so I'm just going to take it off and just put the old one on, or put the new one on, you know, and just do a new. There's nothing wrong with that wheel speed sensor, but, you know, it's just simpler for me. Sometimes when you take these apart down in here, sometimes that little blue thing will come out and it's just all in pieces, so it's best just to replace it. Most of them come with a wheel speed sensor when you buy them, but I think when you go to the parts store, they give you the option to have one like that with a wheel speed sensor and without it. And you can see, as soon as I pulled it out, there was like 5 or 6 sitting up here, but that's the little needle bearings inside. They're coming apart. That's them right there. You got those little roller needle bearings all the way around in there, coming apart. You can see them down in there. That's what it rides on. They go all the way around in there. They're just wore out. Didn't do any damage. You can see a little blue in there from where it got hot. I don't know if you can see it on here, but where it's got a little warm. That's not good, you know, to run them like that. Oh yeah, look at that grease. It cooked that grease. But it'll be all right. It didn't hurt nothing inside there. But it was a good thing to change them. A lot of people don't even realize this. They just drive until the wheel fall off of them, you know, and they eventually will. I decided to go ahead and bring this on over to the truck. I usually don't talk this much in my videos, and the reason why is because usually when I'm watching a how-to video, I'm usually in a hurry, and I just, when the guy's talking, I'm like, shut up and just show me, shut up and just show me, but whatever. I'm going to show you these. See, you've got a bearing, you've got this bearing on the back side right here. Just like with the older type vehicles, you'll have an inner bearing and outer bearing. Old style vehicles like that dump truck, there'll be an inner bearing and an outer bearing on that wheel. And you take that wheel off, get your hub out and everything. And normally, if those bearings are good, they don't have no play in them, you can just clean them real good and repack them full of grease. That's what we did with the older style vehicles. These are non-serviceable. They're sealed. You've got this bearing right here with these little needles. See, they're coming out, and it's just wore out. But up inside here is there's going to be a seal bearing down inside there, and you just can't access it. You can't get to it. But it's just wore out, man. I guess really on this one, the inner bearing, that one that's coming apart, is really the worst one. The bearing up in the hub seems to be, there might be a little bit of play, but it seems to be pretty good there. Of course, it doesn't matter. And that back one's, this is all one piece. I think it's close to a couple $100, but it's got your, you have to buy your lockout separate, I'm pretty sure. You might be able to buy them together, but if you're just buying the hub, you can just buy the hub and keep, you know, if you need to change it because your wheel bearings, you can keep your old lockout and put it right back in. We're going to go through that too, but anyway, that's basically how that works. This bolts onto your, you know, all that stuff under there, and your wheel bolts on out here. Stay tuned. We're going to go through the rest of it and put it back together. Now, when I get to this lockout over here, this is the aftermarket lockout I was telling you about. If you remember over there on that other one, you had the snap ring. Let me show you. I know some of y'all are probably raising hell, but you had the snap ring down in there. See, I'll show you on this wheel. That slid in there just like that. This is the old factory lockout. It slid up in there just like that. And this little snap ring went in there, and that's all that held it in. See, you squeeze that snap ring in there, and it pops out in that slot in there, and that's what holds it in. Now, when you get to these aftermarket, like the worn ones on my dually, or these M&M ones, you got your little Allen head bolts, and it'll all come out. Now, and you just take those out, self-explanatory. See, when you get this piece off, when you get that piece off, it's different inside. See, you've got that little, let me show you right quick. You got that little spring thing. See, it's like a little fan-looking wheel-like thing, and that spins in here, and that causes this in here to do what it does and locks in. But now, how you get this out? Like I said, the guts were missing out of that other one, but there's a little keeper right there, a little snap ring. You just pull that out, and all that'll slide out. It's real easy to slide it out and slide it in, you know. Okay, so I didn't video any of that because you saw me do it all over here, but I got it on the black truck. I went ahead and put the hub back on, got it tightened up, put the lockout in there, and like I said, you've got one little keeper, and then you've got that other little, it's super easy. It's one of the best types that you can do, because you just pull one end of it out and it's super flexible, so you just pull it. It's not like those real hard snap rings that are just shitty to get out and you can never get them back in right because you bend them up getting them out. It's real easy. That's why I didn't fool showing it. But there's two little keepers right there. That's it. And this thing slides all the way in. Remember, I showed you there's a snap ring on the very back of that holds this hub on. I showed you that already. But so you got that snap ring and them 4 bolts. So now I'm just going to put my caliper back on. I've already ran my wheel speed sensor back through. I'm going to put my caliper back on and my lockout like I showed you. This just goes inside there and it boom, it just tightens up, and then you've got your lockouts in there. It's a lot better than the factory one, but that's it. And put your wheel back on and you're done with that. Like I said, don't forget, get under there and grease all those, find all those grease fittings. There's 8 or 10 of them under there. Find them and grease them. And your U-joints, check your U-joints. When I put this one together, I put in new U-joints. You can't see them because I got that brake caliper in the way, but in my front, forward, everything I've got, every U-joint I replaced, I put one with a grease fitting in it. So you can keep them things greased up. And that's just heavy duty. They'll last a long time like that. I love these trucks. They're heavy duty trucks. They're built to run. I don't know much about the new trucks. I can't afford a $70,000 truck. I do know that the newer you get, the more electronics are on them, the more EGR stuff, and you know, it's just everything's a hassle. It makes it harder to work on yourself, and I think this is the last great generation of the Ford Power Stroke that I know of. I know the new one's got more power and stuff, but as far as a poor man or just a regular man like me, I can't afford that garbage. But stick around. If you like these videos, you work on these 6.0s, you need some tips or whatever, I'm no diesel tech Ron, but I've got a lot of time in on them, and I've learned a lot about them. Got a lot of videos on my page. Hit that subscribe, hit the notification bell, help me get these pages out there. You're going to see some off-grid stuff on my page too. If you don't like that kind of thing, just scroll on, but there's going to be a lot of 6.0 videos on there. I'm basically going all the way through this thing, and I've done most of it already in video. I just hadn't edited it up and put it up there, but there's a lot of stuff on there. I'm going to do one in a few days on how to use I got a real nice computer code reader. It's more than a code reader, and show you how to read your live data and all that, and what you're supposed to be having and stuff like that. So check it out and hit that subscribe.